News Talk 1070 KHMO presents On the Mark with Mark Hespin. News Talk 1070 KHMO presents On the Mark with Mark Hespin. On the Mark is powered by Cunis Country Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area at 221 North 36th Street, Quincy. Faith, family, and giving back. That's Cunis Country. And now, here's Mark Hespin.
Good morning, Tri-States, and wherever you may be listening on the News Talk 1070 KHMO app. This is On the Mark. I am Mark Hespin, brought to you by the good people of Cunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. They are the buying center of the tri-states. If you're selling, they're buying. Tell them Mark sent you. Shop online at shopcunis.com. Welcome on in on this beautiful Saturday morning here in the heart of Quincy, Illinois, wherever you may be listening, whether it's on the app or the On the Mark KHMO Facebook page. Thank you so much for making me a part of your Saturday morning. Episode 197 of On the Mark as we get started here. I was just telling the Facebook Live audience before we got on the air here live with all you good people joining us in on the terrestrial radio and on the app, that this is it. We are in the 4 weeks before football season officially kicks off on that first week of September 7th, I believe it is, or 9th, something like that. And so I have to start predicting who I think is going to win each division. Today's show, we will do the AFC and NFC East. Next week's show, we'll do the AFC and NFC South. Then the final week of August, we will do the AFC and NFC West. And that first week of September, Labor Day weekend before the NFL season kicks off, final weekend before we have that game on Thursday night, I will do the AFC and NFC North. If there are major injuries or crazy trades or something that happens between now and then that I think will affect how teams actually finish in their division, we have some time to make some amendments. I will make some amendments, but I've went through every NFL game. I've picked them all. I have come up with every single NFL team's record. I know who is going to make the playoffs. I know who's going to miss the playoffs. I know where they're going to finish in their division. And we'll start with the AFC East and the NFC East on today's show on this Saturday, August 12th. Follow me on Twitter/X, which is just stupid to say, but I'll just say it, or on Instagram at Mark Hespin, MarkHespen. Let's jump into it. Hespin headline number one. Let's predict the AFC East in this year's 2023-2024 NFL season.
Hespin's headlines on the Mark.
All right, gone through the whole of the AFC East. This is a division that is very, very tricky to predict because this is one of the best divisions in football. I will just say before I get started, I think top to bottom, there's no reason why the AFC East can't be considered the best division in football. There are good divisions in football. I think that the AFC West is a very solid division. I think the AFC North is a very solid division. I think the NFC West is a very solid division. But top to bottom, I could make the argument the AFC East has the most B+ teams in the NFL. I don't see any of these teams being a bottom of the barrel picking top 10 in the NFL draft team. And I could make the argument that all four of these teams could be playoff teams, if not multiple playoff win type of teams. Let's start at the top and work our way down. I have winning the AFC East this year, the Buffalo Bills. I have the Buffalo Bills at 12-5 this year, winning the AFC East. A lot of it comes down to quarterback play. Josh Allen, to me, is still the alpha dog in the AFC East. Josh Allen is coming off of a really bad playoff loss to the Bengals at home. I think a really bad taste in his mouth with how that season ended. I think Josh Allen, the NFL Madden cover athlete for the video game, I think he's going to have a huge year. Because Josh Allen is in his prime, he's in his peak, and he's got new weapons and toys to play with. Dawson Knox, a very reliable, good tight end, but they add in the rookie, Dalton Kincaid, the first-round pick. I love that choice for them. I think he is a Mark Andrews. He is a Travis Kelce modern NFL tight end who is an absolute mismatch against linebackers. You have to have a big physical safety, have a chance to covering him. He's too big for corners to cover. I think he's an extraordinary route runner, and I think he's going to be a vital part of the third down offense for the Bills, which I think was the real struggle for them last year. Don't forget about the fact that this Bills defensive front seven is loaded. When all healthy, when Von Miller's actually playing for this team, maybe by week 4 or 5, this is a front seven with a defense that is very, very nasty. Ed Oliver, Von Miller. They bring in Leonard Floyd. They were able to find linebackers in Matt Milano, bringing in Terrell Dodson after losing Tremaine Edmonds. Their linebacking core took a slight hit, but the back end of that defense with Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, very, very talented back end of the defense with a very, very good defensive coach. I think that this Bills team is still the class of the AFC East. Are they in the same realm as the Chiefs and the Bengals? I don't necessarily believe so, but I think this Bills team has a lot to prove. I think they have a motivated quarterback who's in his prime, who is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills should win this division, and I think their schedule is workable. Yes, it is a tough start to the year on the road against the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, Monday Night Football. But after that, they get home against the Raiders, who I think are going to take a step back this year. At Washington, a very winnable game for them. Home against Miami, and then home against Jacksonville and New York, the Giants. Really winnable games to start the year before they have to go on the road to New England. I think they're better than New England. They have the better quarterback. That's a winnable game for them. They get a home game against Tampa Bay, a very winnable game. Tampa looks very bad. And then a tough stretch, yes, a really tough stretch of Cincy, Denver, Jets, Philly, Kansas City, Dallas. But they have home games against Denver and the Jets in that stretch. I don't think Dallas is going to be as good as they were last year, and that game's at home. So even if they slip up at Philly and at Kansas City, they could still find the way to win 3 of the 5 of those games. And to end the season, a tough stretch, but winnable games at Los Angeles Chargers, home against New England, and at Miami, who we just don't know what Miami will be by the end of the season if their quarterback will even be healthy. I think it's unreasonable to think that the Bills are not a double-digit win team. I think the Bills absolutely are a double-digit win team. This was a 13-win team that I have taking a slight step back. Could they be an 11-win team, 12-win team? Absolutely. I think their absolute floor is a 10-win team, and I think the Buffalo Bills win this division behind a very, very good defense, a MVP-level quarterback, and don't forget a schedule that is very workable early on to allow for them to maybe have a slip-up or 2 later on in the year. And number 2 in the AFC this year, in the AFC East, I have the New York Jets. Now, I don't feel confident about saying the New York Jets here. Part of the reason I'm picking the Jets to get second place in the AFC East with a record of 10-7 is because I do think Aaron Rodgers is highly motivated. The last time we saw Aaron Rodgers highly motivated was right after the Packers drafted Jordan Love. What did Aaron Rodgers do? He came out and won an MVP. Now, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to come out and win an MVP, but I do think Aaron Rodgers is going to be highly motivated. The New York Football Jets depth chart reveals a lot to me. Breece Hall, will he be fully healthy early enough in the year? I think so. I think he's going to be a factor this year for them. And the New York Jets defense is very good with their defensive coach. Quentin Williams, C.J. Mosley, Sauce Gardner, Adrian Amos in the back end. A very, very stout Jets defense that can get pressure on the quarterback. The biggest question mark for the Jets between winning this division and not making the playoffs will be the offensive line. I have the offensive line somewhere in the middle to where they don't be a complete disaster, but they're never elite enough for them to actually win this division. An old Aaron Rodgers behind a shaky offensive line is concerning. Elijah Vera Tucker comes back. I like him at guard. Connor McGovern at center is solid, but the tackle position is a disaster. Max Mitchell and Billy Turner waiting for Dwayne Brown to get healthy. And what is Mekhi Becton? Right now, he looks like a bust, the first-round pick. So an old Dwayne Brown at 38 years old that you hope is healthy enough to start the majority of the games. But even then, you know this is going to be a patchwork offensive line. And I just think with the patchwork offensive line and the lack of playmakers beyond Garrett Wilson, I think this is going to be a Jets team that has really high highs, some really ugly losses because of that offensive line. I see them peaking around 10 wins and finishing second in this division. Third, let me tell you why. Let me look at the Jets' schedule here a little bit. Here are some concerning things. They have a brutal start to the year. So if their offensive line isn't healthy to start the year, this could be a Jets team that absolutely goes into panic mode by week 5. Home against Buffalo, on the road against an extremely great Dallas Cowboys defense, and that is a 325 Jim Nance type of game for CBS. Then they're home against New England. That's the easy game in this stretch. As then they're home against Kansas City. They should lose to Kansas City. They're not as good. Then at Denver. But again, that's the CBS game of the week with Jim Nance. And now that's become some sort of a weird rivalry game because of the coaching spat between Denver and the Jets. And then after Denver, they get home against Philadelphia. They could easily be 2-4, 2-5 through the first 6 games of the week. 2-4, maybe 3-3 through their first 6 games before they get an early bye. And for a veteran team, an early bye is not a good thing. Post-bye, their schedule is workable. At the Giants, I think they're better than the Giants. Home against the Chargers, there's no reason why they can't compete against the Chargers if their offensive line is gotten healthy post-bye. And then at the Raiders, at Buffalo, home against Miami, at Atlanta. There's an Atlanta, a Houston, a Washington, a Cleveland down the stretch for the Jets to pile on some wins and maybe get to double digits. I think the high end for this Jets team is 10 wins. I'm predicting them on the high end for what I think with a shaky offensive line and a motivated Aaron Rodgers. Let's move on to third place in the AFC East as you're listening on the mark on News Talk 1070 KHMO, the KHMO app. I have the Miami Dolphins 9-8. Things I like about Miami this year, they add Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator. I love that. With the talent that he has on this defense, Vic Fangio can really, really cause some problems for people. You see names like Bradley Chubb with Vic Fangio, who he knows well. I don't love that they're going to be without Jalen Ramsey to start the year and Eli Apple having to fill in for him. But Xavier Howard, Agba, and Davis inside, I think this is a defense that can create some havoc. The problem I have with Miami all comes down to Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, with Tua, it's when he was healthy early in the year, he was terrific. But as soon as he gets nicked up or beat up or if there's a possibility of concussion, it could absolutely derail this Dolphins season. And so I just don't know what to do with the Dolphins in that well. I also don't love their run game. Raheem Mostert, when the Dolphins lost in that very winnable playoff game against the Bills last year in Buffalo, remember that was a tight game, and they had Skylar Thompson. They threw the ball 45 times. They ran it only 20 times. I love Mike McDaniels, but he was hired because of what he does with the Kyle Shanahan run offense. And they don't have a true RB1. They don't have the running back or the commitment to the run game that we saw Mike McDaniels and we see that Kyle Shanahan do day in, day out. I love Tyreek Hill. I love Jalen Waddle. Absolute studs on the outside. But if Tua can't stay healthy, they don't have a lot of depth at the wide receiver position, and I don't love their running back situation. Now, if you were to tell me the Dolphins actually bring in Dalvin Cook and they commit to the run game, well, then I think this Miami Dolphins team could be a double-digit win team and could surprise some people and finish second in the division. But tough way to start a year on the road at the Chargers, on the road at New England. Then they get home for Denver before going on the road to Buffalo. 3 of 4 on the road could lead to a disastrous 1-3 start for the Miami Dolphins. Then they have a stretch with some winnable games. Home against the Giants. Home against Carolina. Home against New England. And then at the end of the year post-bye week, home against the Raiders. At the Commanders, who I think will be tanking by then. We'll talk about them soon. Home against Tennessee. Home against the Jets. Home against Dallas. And then home against Buffalo to wrap it up. It's workable. It's a tough schedule. And if Tua's not healthy for the stretch post-bye, I think they could be in some real trouble. Finally, the New England Patriots I have at 8-9 as 4th place in the division. The New England Patriots will be, I'm making this prediction now, the best 4th place team of any team in the NFL this year. The New England Patriots finishing 4th. If the New England Patriots were in the NFC South, they could win the NFC South, right? If the New England Patriots were in the NFC North, they absolutely could compete to win the NFC North or finish second. I mean, this is a very, very solid New England Patriots team. I love that they brought in Bill O'Brien. I love that they have a really, really nice offensive line and a solid defensive line. A really nice front seven on the defense and a really nice offensive line. What I don't love about New England is they seem a little antiquated. They don't think they can score 30 points when they need to with Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, and Hunter Henry. Mac Jones, question marks. It's a huge year for him, just like it's a huge year for my guy Justin Fields. A strong offensive line and a nice run game with Ramondre Stevenson, but I don't see them being explosive enough for if their defense has a bad day, can they score 30 points to go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen and actually compete? I like New England a lot. I think that New England could absolutely be a playoff team. It would not shock me if they get to 10 wins. It would shock me if they're anywhere 7 or 6 wins or less. That would shock me. That would really shock me. This is a solid New England team, a really well-coached New England team. They have a legitimate offensive coordinator. They have a very good offensive line, very good defensive line. I just don't think they have the weapons to compete day in, day out in their own division. They don't have the quarterback to compete day in, day out in their own division. Their roster's not as good as Miami's, so I'm going to have them a step below Miami. But if New England finishes second in the division, 10 wins, and makes the playoffs, it certainly would not shock me. You're listening on the Mark News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. When we come back, we will talk NFC East. Who's going to win it? Can the Eagles repeat? We're live and local in America's News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. Brought to you by Kunis Honda Hyundai.
It is a... From the Salvation Army, welcome to Heartbeat.
If you're even remotely handy, I'm sure you have a tool drawer, if not a proper toolbox in your house. If you're hanging a picture, you know where to find a hammer. If the hinges to a door are loose, you know where to find a screwdriver. You know right where to look to find the perfect tool for the job. Our relationship with Scripture should be like this too. Maybe you're struggling with a relationship. Read 1 Peter chapter 4. Or maybe you're looking for wisdom about your finances. Try Romans 13. Or maybe you're grieving the loss of a loved one. The Bible is full of encouraging words like Psalm 34. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. When your spirit is in need of repair, turn to the Word of God and let it be a toolbox for life.
For more episodes of Heartbeat, visit salvationarmyradio.org.
1070 KHMO.
Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app, brought to you by Kunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealers in the tri-state area, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. It's all about the new vehicles right now at Kunis Honda Hyundai. A ton of new Hyundais just in stock. Just talked with Levi Billman, the manager over at Hyundai, the other day on the air on 97.9 Kick FM. It's insane the amount of new vehicles they have getting in. We still see lots struggling to get new inventory, and that's not the case at Kunis Honda Hyundai. And the incentives and the Kunis No Fear lifetime powertrain warranty, All great reasons to stop by the dealership this weekend, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. Tell them Mark sent you. All right, Hespin headline number 2.
Hespin's headlines on the mark.
It is time to make my NFC East predictions. So let's get it started at the top of the NFC East. I have the Philadelphia Eagles at 11-6 winning the NFC East. Now, 11-6 means, all right, they're taking a step back from last year. I think that's twofold. I think the schedule is very tough this year. And I also think it's really important to remember that the Eagles are losing their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. Those aren't small things. A tougher schedule and the loss of an offensive and defensive coordinator, those are not little things at all. But don't panic, Philadelphia. They are still the cream of the crop when it comes to talent and quarterback play in the NFC. Listen to these names. Jalen Hurts, obviously, I think is probably the best quarterback in the NFC. Him and Matt Stafford, when healthy, are to me, clear-cut top of the NFC quarterbacks. You then have the weapons of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and they bring in running back DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. It's a very, very deep, talented running back core for this very physical, hard-nosed running football team. The best offensive line in the NFL. Mailata, Dickerson, Kelsey, Juergens, Johnson. The fact that they brought back Kelsey and Lane Johnson for this final push run, if that group stays healthy, without a doubt, the most solid offensive line in the NFL, top to bottom. A loaded offensive roster. And then you get to the defense, you say, oh, wait, they're even better on defense. This is a team that led the National Football League in sacks. They had sack numbers we hadn't seen since the 85 Bears. Now, I'm not saying they're going to replicate that, but that's the talent we're dealing with. And every year, defenses go up and down a little bit. They're not going to be as good. I have them losing a couple more games, 11-6, still winning the division. But when you talk about Brandon Graham, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Nakobe Dean, Hassan Reddick, Terrell Edmonds, Darius Slay, yeah, those are dogs. That's dudes all over that defense. No matter who's the defensive coordinator, you can't screw it up that bad. Now, they lost TJ Edwards to the Chicago Bears. That's a little bit of a hit. But this is top to bottom, the second best roster in the NFC, and I might argue the best overall roster if you actually include the quarterback position, which, is kind of a big deal. They do have a brutal schedule. At New England, home against Minnesota to start the year. I think it's very reasonable for them to start 2-0 or 1-1 in that stretch. They then can clean up and pile on some wins at Tampa, home against Washington. Very competitive games against the Rams, the Jets, the Dolphins, but very winnable games in their own division against Washington and Dallas before a very nice bye week, week 10. Not too early, not too late. Post-bye, it is a tough stretch. At Kansas City, home against Buffalo, home against San Francisco, at Dallas. They've got to find a way to be 2-2 through that 4-game stretch. And then winnable games at Dallas, at Seattle, home against New York, home against Arizona, at New York. I think they're better than New York. I think they can win both games against the Giants this year. I think they're better than Dallas. I certainly think they can split Dallas this year. I think they're better than Seattle. On the road at Seattle is a very winnable game for them. And obviously, I think Arizona will be in full tank mode by the end of the year. I think the Eagles will be able to be around 500 heading into a workable stretch towards the end of the year, stack on some wins, run away with the division, especially with those 2 late games against the Giants. I like the Eagles to win the NFC East for the second year in a row. Second place in the NFC East this year, I'm going with the New York Football Giants at 9-8. Not revealing yet if they're going to be a playoff team or not. But I will say, I think the Giants are a team that I just don't know how to feel about. I got to be honest. I just don't know. Obviously, they have their quarterback figured out. They're going all in with Daniel Jones. They have Saquon Barkley this year. But their wide receiver core really concerns me. Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slay, Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard, Cole Beasley, a lot of ugh. And with a guy like Daniel Jones, he truly feels like he needs a number one wide receiver. Like the Bears went out and got DJ Moore for Justin Fields. It feels like Daniel Jones needs a star number one wide receiver. I don't see that on this roster. They have an offensive line that I like, but I don't love. And they have a tight end in Darren Waller, who I really like, but I don't know if he loves the situation he's been dealt. I think he really liked being in Vegas with his wife, newly married, and then he gets shipped off to the Giants. So, I mean, it's smart for the Giants. You got to try to give Daniel Jones some weapons to work with here. But I think overall, offensively, it's a concern for me for the Giants. I love Brian Dable. I love their coaching staff. Defensively, they have some dudes. Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, A'Shawn Robinson, all people I like a lot. The defense overall is a very solid front seven. But this is a Giants team with a tough schedule. They have road games at San Francisco. They have home games against a very good Seattle team that was a playoff team last year. They have to go on the road to Miami, to Buffalo. They have road games at New Orleans, at Philadelphia late in the season. This is a Giants team that I like. I don't love. I just don't believe in their quarterback. And how many times is Daniel Jones the better quarterback in a matchup? He's not better than Dak Prescott. Yeah, he's better than maybe Brock Purdy, but the San Francisco team is a much better team. He's not better than Tua. He's not better than Josh Allen. He's not better than Aaron Rodgers. He's maybe just as good as Jimmy G. He's just as good maybe as Mac Jones. He's not as good as Derek Carr. He's not as good as Jalen Hurts in both those matchups. He's not as good as Matt Stafford. So they're in a real deficiency. And unless Brian Dable has more magic up his sleeve, I think the Giants will be good. I have them second in their division. I just don't see them making a leap. They were a 10-win team last year. I have them taking a slight step back this year, just about the same type of team as they were last year. The Dallas Cowboys I have also at 9-8, but I have them finishing at third in the division. For me, the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of it comes down to the fact that I don't believe in Dak Prescott. You know this. It's not a secret. I also think that losing Kellen Moore and what the Dallas Cowboys are trying to do with their philosophy as a team concerns me. And it should rightfully concern you as well. The Dallas Cowboys got rid of their offensive coordinator when this was a team that was putting up points in bunches. And the reason they won the many games they did last year is because they were an offensive juggernaut. And they lose their offensive coordinator to basically say, we want to run the ball more and take the ball out of Dak's hands so he stops throwing as many interceptions. That's not great. That is not a great philosophy in 2023 NFL football, especially when you have CeeDee Lamb and you have big playmakers and Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks isn't a prolific catch 89 balls. He's a big play, burn the top off. CeeDee Lamb is a big play, burn the top off the defense. And I don't love their tight end position. Their offensive line is good, but we don't know what Zach Martin's going to do. Tyron Smith has been injured. He's had a Hall of Fame career, but it's towards the end of it. And while, yes, they have studs on defense with Micah Parsons and with Trayvon Diggs, it's a very nice defense. DeMarcus Lawrence, they're a big play defense. They're not a consistent shut you down, 3-and-out, 3-and-out, 3-and-out defense. They have a tough schedule. Road games at San Francisco, at the Chargers, obviously at Philadelphia. They have road games at Buffalo, at Miami. Some of their home games late in the season against a very good Detroit team. Home against a very good Seattle team. home against the New York Jets. They didn't get scheduling breaks. I don't believe in Dak Prescott. I don't believe in the philosophy of the coaching staff. I have the Dallas Cowboys taking a step back, being a 9-win team this year. Finally, the Washington Commanders. Let me just say this. The Washington Commanders I have finishing 4th in the division. When I went through, I'll be honest, when I went through and picked every game, I got to my results, and the results were the Washington Commanders won 2 football games. Now, I don't actually think the Washington Commanders are going to win only 2 football games. They'll probably win a couple more. But I think deep down, what that says about my thoughts about Washington is I think the Washington Commanders should try to only win 2 football games. I think the best thing that can happen to the Washington Commanders this year is to have the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft and select Caleb Williams with a whole new coaching staff. And maybe that is Eric Bieniemy. They want to hire him. They wanted him in their building. But I don't love already what I'm hearing about Ron Rivera airing out the Eric Bieniemy dirty laundry. I don't love hearing that their top guys on offense are complaining about Bieniemy. They do have talent. McLaurin, Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Brian Robinson, the running back. I like Logan Thomas, the tight end. They have an okay offensive line with Wiley and Charles Leno and Nick Gates. They have a solid defense with Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Kendall Fuller. I just don't love what they are as an organization, and I think the best thing the Washington Commanders should do should be to go into tank mode. This also is just I don't know what Sam Howell is, and do I trust Sam Howell winning more than 5 games in a 17-game season with the tough schedule they have? No. They have road games at Denver, at Philly. They have road games at New England, at Seattle, obviously at Dallas, at the Rams, at the Jets. Their home games at the Niners, at home against Miami, home against the Niners, home against Philadelphia, obviously home against Chicago, home against Buffalo. They didn't get scheduling breaks, and I don't trust their quarterback. I think it's going to be a tough year for the Washington Commanders, but I think it's the best thing for the Washington Commanders to end up with the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. You're listening on the Mark, News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. There it is, my AFC East and NFC East predictions. I've revealed 2 of my playoff teams. No surprises. I have the Bills winning the East. I have the Eagles winning the East in the AFC and the NFC. Giants, Cowboys could be playoff teams. Jets, Dolphins, Pats. I like them all. I have the Jets in the playoffs. Dolphins, Pats could be playoff teams. Overall, I think the only team of these 4 that is decidedly not a playoff team and should actively not be a playoff team is the Commanders. I'll reveal again my official playoff standings Saturday, September 2nd, the final Saturday before the season kicks off in earnest. You're listening on the Mark, News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. When we come back, more conference realignment talk with the ACC. Why we need to keep our eyes on the Atlantic Coastal Conference. We're live and local in America's News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. It's on the Mark.
I'm Shanola Hampton. Every day, millions of people face hunger. Today, I will share with you some of their experiences. I'm stuck between paying for medications or paying for food. John from Maine. After paying my bills, I can buy groceries. It's sad to say, food comes last. Alice from Oregon. I thought pantries were for less fortunate people, but anybody could be less fortunate in a day or even a second. Claire from Virginia. The Feeding America network of food banks helps provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. No one should have to worry where their next meal will come from. Together, we can end hunger. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Hi. I don't even know why I'm calling right now. I'm sorry. My thoughts are going a mile a minute.
No matter how you served.
I left the service last year. My mom just passed away a few months ago. I missed so much time with her.
No matter what you're going through.
Before, I knew what to expect every day. And now I have so many decisions to make. I keep getting calls about the bills, and I'm trying to get a job, but I feel so stuck.
We are here for you.
Okay, ma'am. I'm glad you called. Let's stay on the line and walk through some things.
If you or a veteran in your life is experiencing thoughts of suicide, dial 988. Then press 1 to reach the Veterans Crisis Line.
We are the Veterans Health Administration, and our hands provide life-changing care to over 9 million veterans across more than 1,200 facilities nationwide. Join hands with us to make an impact in your community. Learn more at vacareers.va.gov.
Paid for by Christian Care.
Meteorology forecast from the News Talk 1070 KHMO Weather Center. Highs around 89 today. Under partly cloudy skies, northwesterly winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy tonight, 66. Scattered thunderstorms likely tomorrow. Highs level off around 79, cloudy. Right now, 79.
Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app, brought to you by Cunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. They are the buying center of the tri-states. If you're selling your vehicle, get off Facebook Marketplace. Stop dealing with creepy dudes messaging you at all hours of the day saying, hey, can I come over and check out your ride? And then lowballing you. That's brutal. Take it over to Cunis Honda Hyundai. You don't have to buy from Cunis to sell. They're just buying vehicles, checks in hand, ready to go. They want your vehicle. Make them buy it from you. Get a great deal. 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. Tell them Mark sent you. All right. More NFL, NCAA football and NCAA conference realignment talk. The ACC, they had a vote on whether to add Cal and Stanford to the ACC. The vote was shot down. They needed 13 of 16 or something like that, and they only got a certain amount. They were missing out on their votes by one. And I think it doesn't make any sense to add Stanford and Cal to the ACC. The ACC is in real trouble. From what I've read and what I've learned, the biggest problem with the ACC right now is you have giant brands that should be commanding giant dollars, right? Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, all big brands, all wanting big money. And all ACC schools right now are making $30 million less in revenue from their contract than the Big Ten and the SEC. That's brutal. If you're Dabo and you're Clemson and you're Florida State and you are Miami and you're North Carolina, the big boys of the ACC, you're going, wait a minute. I can get $30 million more. Think about how much that's going to help not only my football program, but my university and my other sports if I simply jump ship to the SEC or the Big Ten. And the Big Ten and the ACE and the SEC, don't be fooled, are obviously eyeing the top level of the ACC. Now, I truly believe this at this point in time. Cal, Stanford, and the lower level ACC schools all just have to basically wait for this move. It's going to happen. ACC schools have until Tuesday of this week, coming on up, to let the ACC know if they're going to jump ship or not for next year. I don't know if we will see anyone make a move by Tuesday. Could happen. I feel like that's a little rushed. But again, if you are Florida State, Miami, Clemson, you should absolutely bolt for the SEC. Florida State, Miami, Clemson should bolt for the SEC. The teams that the Big Ten should want to take should be Duke, North Carolina, Virginia, right? Those three schools, and then Stanford. The Big Ten, when Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and maybe a Louisville or a Virginia or a Georgia Tech bolt for the SEC, the Big Ten should be aggressive in scooping up North Carolina, Duke, either then Virginia, and then Stanford. Because what the Big Ten will do then is adding Stanford to their West Coast powers, the tradition of Stanford. Stanford plays Big Ten football anyways. Stanford's an academic power that they can match up then with having the academic powers of Stanford, Northwestern, Duke. And then North Carolina allows them to recruit in the South and fits with their branding in the South. And they get a little piece of action in the South. So I propose, again, I think the ACC should just hold tight for another year or two. And then all of these ACC schools need to start trying to make themselves as attractive as they can to the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10. And the Big 12 will scoop up some of these ACC schools. And I think eventually then the Big 12 or the Mountain West will scoop up a Cal or something like that. And you'll be left with a gigantic SEC, a gigantic Big 10. Those are the conferences of matter in the NCAA football realm. And then you'll have a very solid Big 12 as that mid-tier. And then you'll have a bunch of MAC, AAC, Mountain West with some filler schools that may or may not get an automatic bid and a sneak into the college football playoff. But absolutely, Clemson, Florida State, Miami makes sense to the SEC. The schools the Big Ten should want would be North Carolina, Duke, and maybe a Virginia. If they can't convince Notre Dame, the Big Ten really wants 22 schools. They're at 18. They really would want North Carolina, Duke, Stanford. That gets them to 21, and then Notre Dame 22. That's really what the Big Ten wants. They want North Carolina, they want Duke, they want Stanford, and Notre Dame. So they're waiting on Notre Dame. But I think they can become more attractive to Notre Dame if they bring in North Carolina, Duke, Stanford. Then Notre Dame will feel like, all right, we have a lot of tradition here. We have a lot of same travel, and we have a lot of rivalry here with USC, with Stanford, with Michigan, with Michigan State, with Ohio State, with Indiana schools, and they could be all in. Quick break, wrapping up with a couple quick hitter topics next. We're live and local in America's News Talk 1070 KHMO. It's On the Mark.
Hi, this is Jason Buxton.
When you're living with low vision, life can be a challenge. Everyday tasks and the things you love to do can become difficult and feel impossible. You might find yourself feeling sad, isolated, frustrated, and like you just want to give up. Don't. If you're 55 or older and your world has gotten smaller because of vision loss, it's time to be bold. Time to be bold is helping people like you with low vision regain your independence. Go to timetobebold.org for a list of services in your state that will give you the tools, technology, training, and support you need to live your bold, best life. Join others who found a bright, bold future. Go to timetobebold.org. Help is here. Go to timetobebold.org today.
Happy kids heal faster.
That's why Starlight Children's Foundation is dedicated to improving the mental well-being of sick kids. Being in a hospital facing painful treatment takes away from the happiness of childhood. But that's where Starlight comes in. We provide entertainment, comfort, and distraction through Starlight gaming, hospital gowns, and toy deliveries to bring smiles to over 800 hospitals. Starlight programs are what happiness is made of. Learn more at starlight.org.
1070 KHMO.
Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. Brought to you by Cunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area. 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. It's all about that no-fear lifetime powertrain warranty on new and used vehicles. They have it. Everyone else is jealous of it. Stop by the dealership. Tell them Mark sent you. 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. All right, as of this morning, Saturday, August 12th, the Chicago Cubs tied for the final wild card spot with the Reds, 2.5 games back of Milwaukee in the division. And after the next 2 games against Toronto today and tomorrow, they have a stretch of 12 games where the Chicago Cubs could really, really, really make their stamp and make their move for the playoffs. The Chicago Cubs' playoff chances will be determined over the next 14 games, really. I'm telling you. 2 games against Toronto, and then they have 2 games against the White Sox. They have a series against the Royals, against the Tigers, and the Pirates. If they can find a way in the next 14 games, 2 against Toronto, White Sox, Royals, Tigers, Pirates, 14 games between all of that, if the Chicago Cubs could find a way to make sure they win 8, 9, or 10 of those 14, which they absolutely should. They're better than the White Sox, the Royals, the Tigers, and the Pirates right now. They're better than all of them. The Cubs can find a way to win 8 to 10 or more of those games. The Cubs could legitimately cement themselves as a playoff team this year. If they could go on a hot streak and find a way to win 11 or 12 or more of those games, which they absolutely could, they're better than those teams. Cubs, playoffs, book it. Harry Kane, 4-year deal with Bayern Munich. Feels weird seeing Harry Kane not playing football in England, but Bayern Munich's very good. He'll finally win a league. He'll finally get to play in some real huge, giant games beyond just the national team games. Harry Kane's one of the great footballers of our lifetimes. And so to see him with a very good team like Bayern for the next 4 years as he's winding down his prime, happy for him. But I liked him on Tottenham. I like Tottenham. Sad to see him leave the Spurs. And finally, we get to watch Justin Fields play football today, ladies and gentlemen. I like that Justin Fields will probably play a series or 2 with the starters, continuity, getting on out there. Excited to watch the Bears and see the highlights. There's some good storylines, though, elsewhere in the NFL in the preseason today. In the preseason today, we are going to get to see Malik Willis versus Will Levis. How much will each of those guys play? Will Levis play above Malik Willis? What's that going to look like? And how are those two guys going to be battling for not only second string, but just like the future of the Titans quarterback position? Really, really interesting. Anthony Richardson for the Colts is going to get to play today. We're going to see him. He's going to get the start in the season, it looks like, for the Colts. So keep an eye on Anthony Richardson and what he does with Shane Steichen, the new head coach there. Zach Wilson versus Bryce Young. I want to see Zach Wilson play like the whole game. I think you need to. I think you need to get as much tape on Zach Wilson. think you need to put him out there as much as possible. And I'm excited to see Bryce Young on an NFL field. We saw C.J. Stroud. He looked nervous. Interception, not a terrible one. It was a terrible interception, but overall, it's the Patriots, Bill Belichick. You give him a little bit of a break, but this is what we're watching preseason for. Who's going to come out, who's going to pop, who's going to shine, and who's going to struggle early on. Beyond those games, you also have what? You have the Jags and Cowboys. Will Trevor Lawrence play a little bit? Eagles and Ravens. I don't expect to see many of the starters in either of those games. Those are 2 playoff-bound teams, Chargers and Rams. Stetson Bennett, hey-oh. And then Sean McVay always loves to sit his starters. You know that. Full day of preseason football. Enjoy it. I will see you next week where I will unveil my NFC South rankings. I'll post on social media the official NFC East predictions and NFC and AFC East predictions on the Mark. News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. Have a great week.
Long one.